Welcome to my basement, everybody, and especially to my very good friend, Ben Silverman. Sorry for yelling in your ear, buddy. It's good to see you. I've got you on a giant screen television set right here. It's like you're so close I could kiss you.
Don't
And
kiss me.
in 2 days I'll be able to. Because
Yeah, we're gonna hug and kiss, and we're gonna go to E3 together.
E3 starts on the weekend now, which is incredibly insane. Like there is no letting up on this thing.
Yeah,
The death knells have been ringing for a while, but it's like gangbusters big already. Like on Sunday, we've got two huge press conferences and tons of reveals and hopefully some playtime. But
yeah,
we've already played a little bit of E3. We've already gotten a chance to get our hands on. We couldn't talk about anything until pretty much until today.
yeah. I think some stuff comes off embargo today. I mean,
Yeah.
just so everybody knows, I decided to wear all of my E3 badges for this conversation. I dug them all out. I've got some. Here's one. Here's a good one. There's a little best of E3 2002. Remember when they gave us pins
Oh,
to be judges?
that's awesome. Yeah.
Got pins. Here's one. I don't know if you remember Vanguard from 2004. That was an online connected to
Okay.
this.
I sure don't remember Vanguard.
I don't remember Vanguard either. It's a failed MMO, but I decided I'm going to wear all of these badges. This is my 20th E3, and we don't know what E3 is going to become next year because
Yeah.
it feels like it's definitely becoming
Yeah.
something different. It's heading very hard into a fan direction, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
We think it's probably a good idea. So this might be the very last. I don't know. It might not, but it might be the very last year that we're getting this kind of judge pre-show
Well,
treatment.
let's recap a little bit because there have been some big announcements already, and we'll get into the games that we played in a second here. But Injustice 2 we know is coming. It'll probably be, probably a few characters playable. We'll probably get to see Ed Boon on stage or, at the WB booth talking about this game.
Are you thrilled? Just really quick. Are you like thrilled about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed the last Mortal Kombat game. I really enjoyed the last Injustice game. I think that it was a huge success, obviously, for Warner Brothers, and it affected the TV shows and the comic books. And they have a lot of content to kind of pull from. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of connection to the current DC cinematic universe that Zack Snyder is building for us. I'm somewhat happy about that, and some of the I'm sure the TV show characters are going to be in there too, which is going to be amazing. I mean, I think it'd be killer to have a Stephen Amell Green Arrow fighting a Grant Gustin Flash in a video game, and I think that's probably going to happen. So I'm psyched about that. But I think a pretty crazy thing hit today with PlayStation 4 Neo, the new machine, which hasn't been named yet, won't be at E3. They're going to unveil it later.
Well, yeah. So they said, and this was Andrew House, I think, said it
Yeah.
to the Financial Times or somebody, that it's not going to be at E3 and they're going to unveil it later. However, I don't know if that means they're not going to talk about it a little bit at E3. I think it wouldn't be surprising for me to have them acknowledge it and maybe say a few words about it. But
Yeah.
yes, I don't. The actual unit's not going to be there with games running on it, and I think in a lot of ways that makes sense. It would be surprising for me if they came out with like a full suite of games you could play on that and PSVR. And they're trying to push PSVR at us this year.
Yeah.
So I can tell why they'd want to pull back. Maybe they'll hold it for Gamescom or something else. But a little disappointing because we like to hear and see lots of hardware at the show. But, we know it's coming at least.
Yeah. What else has been leaked? I think some of the Bethesda stuff has been leaked a little bit. Prey 2 may be coming out of hibernation, which
I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if I buy all that Bethesda business. I saw some of those rumors too, but I mean, look, Prey 2 already had its chance at a comeback. I would be shocked if they pulled that thing out. But look, they do have this big press conference, and you and I talked when we were in Los Angeles with Steve Tilley about
Yeah.
like they're having a huge press. They're like renting. They built a theater or
Yeah,
something. It's
yes.
like this massive thing.
Yeah, Pete Hines tweeted that it's the 6th largest theater in California, and
Why?
they made it.
Why? There's so many venues in the world.
I don't know, man. Maybe I mean it was a gong show last year. They ran into real trouble with the lineup and the seating issues and all that stuff. Maybe they wanted to contend with that and fix all of that. But they do. You're right. They have to have something big to announce, right? They've got to make it worth our while.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has got to be, and we talked about this before. It's got to be an Elder Scrolls game. I think they have to even have a teaser trailer or something.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have that many people in one place, you can't just come out and say like Dishonored 2, which they announced last year, so it's not going to be. It's going to be cool to see, but we're not like kind of shocked by it.
Right.
And
We're going to
I
be
don't
playing that at E3
say
this year.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. We'll
yeah,
play it, and I don't think you can come out with and Prey 2. Remember that game that kind of looked cool and then we kind of killed and maybe is coming back? Like that's a footnote of interest, but that's not what you
yeah.
this entire show on.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, I personally I played Prey 2 in its Human Head days, and I actually had a good time playing with that game. But yeah, it's been a few years since that was around, and the industry has changed a lot. But they got to be, feeling full of fire right now because Doom was very good. I thought the Wolfenstein game that Machine Games did was really good, and the add-on content that they did for the game was pretty cool as well. Obviously Fallout 4 did huge for them. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in Dishonored too, and I think we'll probably hear something about an Evil Within. But they got to be feeling they had an amazing year. And one of the things that I just read in an interview with one of the founders or one of the organizers at the ESA who puts on the show is that they can point to that Bethesda conference last year and say with certainty that E3 still has a really big prominence on the world stage in terms of interest, and what they point to is the Fallout mobile game that they announced and said it's live right now, and instantly became a #1 smash all across the world on the app stores. And that's kind of true, right? So there's still a relevance for E3 if you can point to those specific kinds of moments in time.
Well, except I mean, the ESA is trying to take ownership of that moment, but that moment could have happened. Didn't have to happen at E3. They could have thrown that press conference when they wanted and talked about
Sure.
Fallout 4 and released that game, and it might have had the same thing. It just the ESA, I think, has been in the business now of capturing those moments and feeling an ownership over. When Sony announces the thing about we're not going to enforce the backwards compatibility, or sorry, always online issues that they had with Microsoft, and that big great back and forth,
Yeah.
price discrepancies. The ESA loves to be able to say, this is why E3 is amazing. But the truth is, that stuff is happening before E3. That's not actual E3.
Right.
E3 itself, from the beginning to the end of the convention, especially this year, feels like a footnote. It feels like an epilogue on what's already going to be the story. By the beginning of the day Tuesday,
Yeah.
we will have already known and seen and kind of felt everything wash over us. And then it's just a matter of going and looking at things. It's the news
and most of that will be behind closed doors, won't it? A big chunk of what we're going to be most excited for will be shown in video form on the floor, and we'll be playing it, and not everyone will have access to it, which is unfortunate, behind closed doors, which is kind of crazy. And that's been a big transformation for E3. But I don't know if Bethesda would have had the entirety of the audience that it did have because we were all in town for E3 if they decided to put their own event on,
Well, there was a special year too because we had all been waiting for Fallout and we were anticipating Fallout. And if they had not announced Fallout or Fallout Shelter at that conference and they brought out Evil Within 2 or something, it wouldn't have been the moment it was. It was them bringing out Fallout and bringing out Todd to spend 15 minutes or half an hour, however long it was, talking to us and walking us through the game. That was kind of an unprecedented display of one game getting this huge treatment on stage. Even at Sony and Microsoft press conferences, you get a tidbit. You get a couple minutes and then they're off to another game.
Yeah.
This was really we got to sit with what was going to be the biggest game or one of the biggest games of the year for a while at a press show.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen often. So I don't know what they're going to do to top that. And what I think is interesting about Bethesda doing this is that unlike the other companies who do this, Activision or Ubisoft, who are in love with sequels and they are in the sequel business. I mean, every year Ubisoft, luckily not this year, but every year Assassin's Creed, we're going to get a Far Cry, we're going to get a this. Activision, Call of Duty, every single year, and then Skylanders. We know what to expect. Destiny now. Bethesda hasn't been playing that game. So if you're going to start to have these huge press conferences every year, if you're going to come out and start to try to be in that business, you're going to have to start, I hate to say it, either milking your franchises or you're going to have to really invest and shock people with how many new developers you're bringing on for new IP or to bring back IP. That's what makes this year so interesting to me is I don't really know other than we talked about a Wolfenstein game, we talked about Prey 2 or something random like that, but those really huge games of theirs that make a Bethesda press conference extremely sexy, and that's really Fallout and Elder Scrolls. they got to bring Elder Scrolls for me to really get super hyped about this. Because otherwise, they could have just had a booth at the show and it would have been cool.
Well, and we don't want Bethesda to iterate at the sort of speed that we've seen out of Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty either, and
Right.
that's the challenge.
Right.
Like we would be concerned, I think, if Elder Scrolls was coming out this year, right? That would be kind of a red flag. Like, oh my God, that's too soon.
Yeah, I mean, it can't. It's not even about that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I that was shocking that they showed Fallout 4 and then released it, 6 months
yes,
later.
yeah.
I think
And some
fans,
would argue, like Blake, that perhaps they shouldn't have stuck to their release date.
I think a lot of people would have argued
Yes.
it was a little more time to polish
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
maybe that's a lesson. Maybe what they say is here's like a teaser trailer for the next Elder Scrolls game,
Right.
a couple quick words about it, and even though we don't get the big gameplay kind of drop, we know that something's coming. We can get excited for
Right.
holiday 2017 or whatever. E3 for me is not just about, and it's kind of shifted to games that we're going to see, within the next 6 months or year. But and I might be in the minority here. I don't mind when E3 comes out and says, "Here's something that's coming in 2 years. Here's
No,
something
no,
that's
no.
coming."
Yeah,
for the line."
we need
I
to
like
have that hope, right? We need to have
Yeah.
that kind of that just that grandiose idea in the distance that's kind of pulling us forward like a north star, you know. And I
Yeah.
think No Man's Sky was that, right? I mean, for so long we had no idea when the hell we'd be able to play that game, and I think we need more of that stuff.
We still don't really.
Yeah. Let's hope everyone survives as they finish that thing. The other leak that I can think of, and Blake, you can shout out any other ideas that or any other news items that I might be forgetting. But the other big one is the Lego Dimensions. It's like Warner Brothers is saying, here's a big chunk of what we've got for you, and we know Mordor 2. It will probably be the other big sort of thing that we can kind of count on out of Warner Brothers. But Lego Dimensions now has E.T. and Mission Impossible. And what did you think about all of that stuff, besides the dollar bills going all over the place?
Yeah, that's all it was for
Yeah.
me. I mean, look, there's this still to me is a kind of confusing property because, like, okay, the Goonies, like that speaks right to me, right?
Yeah.
We all grew up, the people of a certain age grew up with that, but
Sure.
like, you know, my kids or the people who are younger. I mean, they're trying to appeal to these two very different groups, which is like the kind of arrested development weirdos like us,
Yeah.
and then there's like the kids who like don't care at all about the Goonies, but they want to get like
I said the
Ninjago or
Goonies
whatever.
to my daughter, and she just laughed at the title. She said, "That sounds so funny," but she has no point of reference there. It
Yeah.
is weird. It is like they're
Yeah.
trying to get two disparate audiences. But I think where they're finding success with Lego Dimensions is just like it is at our house, where it's a parent playing with a kid and sort of introducing them to these properties. And that's why
Are
I
they
think
are they finding success though? Like, do we know?
I don't
how,
know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will tell you that when you read the press release and you read it is one of the most confusing press releases I've ever received, when it lists out all of the packs and the characters and how everything will interplay and how it's going to go up until summer 2017. It's an incredible amount of information to try to relay to somebody, and
Yeah.
then we
Yeah.
have to kind of digest it and put that back out there. Apart from the idea that characters are going to be in the game, I think one of the good things that they've done is they've simplified it so you don't have to buy any new base hardware or like the full game again or anything like that. You can just keep on going with what you already have. But
Yeah, although I do think it's weird that in the same show they're going to be, blasting out all this information and they're going to have all these new toys for Lego Dimensions. And then at the same time, they're going to say, and here's Lego The Force Awakens,
Yeah.
which is not a toy. It's just a regular Lego. Like, they're just kind of spreading all this. I don't love this as a direction. I kind of feel like you either keep making those Lego games like that, or if you're going to do The Force Awakens, work that thing into this. Like,
Yeah.
why is that its own game? And it's just a confusing, they're just throwing Lego and just hoping we just keep catching it. And
Well,
I personally am a little kind of done with
they
that.
are kind of seeding the sort of groundwork for there to be a Lego game platform, it doesn't need to be connected to a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox, that they could actually sell in a Lego store and hooks up to an internet connected television or something like that. They're sort of laying the groundwork that way. That's not what this is yet, but yeah, it is unbelievably confusing. And if you also factor in Lego Worlds, which is that Minecraft sort of concept that they've got coming up and I've tooled around with the early access version of the game, it could be very cool. I mean, it's probably a year out, but it's another thing that's just going to be
But none of
insane.
these things connect, right? None of these things are connected. There's just these separate Lego worlds. Like I play Dimensions, you play that one. And then there's actual Legos.
Yeah.
Like it's just too fun.
It's like we're virtually walking on Lego pieces in the Lego games.
Yeah.
With all of these assortments.
Exactly.
Okay.
Picking them off the feet.
Any other big leaks or reveals that we should talk about?
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Has it been leaked?
That's the rumor.
Okay. Well,
wait, that's a rumor of a leak? Blake.
It's a rumor of a leak that Red Dead Redemption 2 will be at E3. Maybe it'll be on the. Maybe that's an Xbox lock-in. You know, they're going into this. I'm sure Xbox is okay now that they know that PlayStation won't have their 4K thing. I think Xbox will have its 4K thing, and I think they're gonna come in with some big, monetary exclusive deal that they've put together because they're feeling bullish, at least in their early press releases and stuff like that. The sort of the squabble or the squawking that's happening right now about the Xbox conference, they're going to have a big one for us.
You know what I would like to quickly talk about. This is going to segue us because we need to get segued into talking about the games that we've seen.
Yes.
But so just to kind of catch everybody up with where we're going to go with this, each year we go to this big pre-E3 event down in LA, which used to be a lot bigger. Now it's gotten a lot smaller. And part of the reason it's gotten smaller is companies are concerned about leaks and they want to hold things back for the show.
Right.
Ironically enough,
more leaks than ever before.
Watch Dogs 2,
yeah,
not at pre-E3, even though Ubisoft used to be there prominently. In the past, we've seen some of their very big games very early.
Yeah.
Destiny, the new one.
Yeah.
Nope, Activision wasn't there this year.
Destiny's not going to be at E3 either. They're not going to have playable there. I think they're just going to tell people about it. But there is no playable, from what I understand. Maybe that'll change when we get there. But from what I understand, we won't be able to play the new one.
I just, this thing is now happening where like the leaks are happening beforehand, and even in some cases companies are just going like, you know what, here's our E3 trailer, and it's like Wednesday, and you're like, you have like a week before you need to do this.
Well, and Injustice, I think, was because it got leaked and it spread everywhere, and they had to say it the next day. I don't know. It just feels like, yes, it's 2 weeks of announcements, and everybody's trying to sort of crack through the noise, and it's going to get really noisy on Sunday, starting Sunday. And do you think EA is going to have something that's going to shock us? It's going to surprise the hell out of us? I think they did last year with Unravel. I think that was like, what? That's an EA game? And I think the fact that there was a sequel to Plants vs. Zombies was a pretty big deal. But do you think, are they going to surprise us this year?
I don't know. I mean, they seem to be playing it relatively safe for everything that I've seen. So maybe they'll have something in the press conference that's kind of like a quirky thing that we don't know much about. But, Battlefield.
We're going to see something of the Amy one or the Jade Star Wars game, I think. Or maybe
I think we might
both.
see a trailer.
Yeah.
I think a trailer will be the most we'll see of that. In terms of playable, I mean, hopefully Mass Effect, Battlefield, they're going to, kind of barf out all their sports games at us.
Yeah.
But I feel like that company is trying to pull back and not show 100,000 things anymore. We're not getting a Need for Speed this year. Like they feel like they're like, we went too big, and they also want all of their all of their games to become living platforms with DLC and this and that. They kind of don't want to spam us with 1,000 games. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one or two. I think the Star Wars one, I think you're astute that could totally be it, to capitalize on everyone being interested in Star Wars. Probably some Battlefront, new maps and things and whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to necessarily see like, Road Rash come back or something like
they got to do something too, because they're not at E3. There's no booth. There's not going to be this extended conversation about EA unless it's coming from the fans that are going to their EA Play event. So they have got to give them something to stay excited about, because they're kind of in competition with E3 in a lot of ways this year. And that's going to be a very interesting one. That's the first on deck, too, that we get all of that information sort of Sunday at 1 o'clock. So stay tuned for that. And who knows what we're going to get out of the Xbox and PlayStation press conferences. We're getting so close to launch info on all of that stuff, which is going to be interesting. But let's talk about the games that we play. Let's start with a quirky one. Let's start with Abzu. This is a kind of a wet spiritual successor to Journey.
Okay, yeah, that was. I would not have phrased it like that, Victor Lucas, but that's why you are.
Kind of, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an underwater adventure game.
Yes.
I think that the journey thing to me feels like it's throwing people off a little bit because I think it feels like a journey in the sense that you don't do a ton,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got that same sort of visual treatment with like pointed kind of limbs and kind of this kind of vague black face with kind of little eyes. Like it's the character feels
Minimalist.
yes, minimalist and kind of similar in the middle of a very incredible, cool looking environment.
Sounds
So
like
it's
Journey that's wet to me.
so that sounds like Journey, but the thing
Okay.
that doesn't sound like Journey, and the thing that I think a lot of people might get lost with is the thing that made Journey wasn't just the look and kind of
No.
feel of Journey. It was the cooperative thing that happened.
Yes.
That was where Journey was like. I realized over the course of this, 2 hours of playing this game or hour and a half, however long it took, I had these moments with people, and that's what really got the hooks in. It wasn't
Totally.
just floating around. And this game is a lot more literally now floating around. You're swimming through these beautiful environments. Since the first time I saw the game, what they showed us at pre-E3 and what they'll show at E3 is like a much bigger emphasis on fish.
Yeah.
There's fucking fish. This is the fish game. There's and like every kind of fish. You can like highlight a fish, and it's like that's a grouper, that's a tuna, that's a speckled whatever.
You
the
can
fuck.
ride
And
on sharks. You can grab their fins and ride behind them. You can grab on turtles and things like that.
you get in trouble for that in real life. Don't ever do that.
No,
kid.
no.
If you see a turtle in the ocean, kids, don't
Ask
you touch
first.
the turtle. Yeah,
Yeah.
first of all it'll kill
Yes.
you. It might shit on you, and you'll probably be arrested. So
I had an incredibly zen experience playing this game, though. I loved just leaning back and chilling out. I love the music as well as like an orchestral, lush soundtrack.
Is that an Austin Wintory thing? It
I
might be on-
think so, yeah. The music's great, and the controls were terrific as well. For free flow, kicking through with your flippers and going into all of these different areas and stuff like that. I thought it was really amazing, and it kind of reminded me, as much as it's sort of, makes me reminisce about Journey, it also bounced in a little of Wind Waker kind of vibe too. I felt just at peace, when I was playing the game. I really kind of dug that I was exploring these sunken tombs and unlocking doors and lighting up these little robotic satellite sort of characters that were following me around. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, a little bit of Echo the Dolphin in there too, especially
Yes.
when you kind of shoot yourself out of the water and you can do some flips. And then there are sharks, and like in Echo the Dolphin, which is one of my favorite all-time games, particularly the original Genesis one.
I didn't know
there's-
that. Really?
Oh yeah, man, that first
Yeah?
Echo game.
That
Oh
was
yeah.
very cool. It was very cool.
I
Absolutely.
just I remember being captivated when I bought my Sega Genesis back however long ago that was, and looking at the back of the Sega Genesis box when you used to buy platforms, and they
Sure.
would have all these little pictures of upcoming games. And I just remember staring at this Dolphin game. Like the last time I played a Dolphin game, I think was Dolphin on the Atari, which was like awful. It
Yeah.
was like a terrible side-scrolling underwater game.
Right.
So I was like, finally a real Dolphin game, and Echo kind of was, for me at least at the time, incredibly important and amazing for me as a gamer. And this reminded me of some of that in terms of the kind of horror you get when you see a shark and you're a dolphin and you're swimming around. And in this case, you're not a dolphin; you're just like a lady or a guy or just a humanoid.
Yeah. Humanoid.
So yeah,
Yes.
humanoid. I agree with you. Very zen, very calming. At the same time, a little anxiety because you are underwater and anything can happen. Very beautiful, intriguing.
Yeah.
Totally.
I was very pleasantly surprised. I thought I had seen everything because they showed it to us last year and we played a little bit of it last year too. And I thought I had seen everything, but no, they made it a much more beautiful, lush experience. And I'm psyched to play this. And it comes out this summer, so we don't have a long wait for that one. Yep. Another game that it kind of echoes a little bit of that minimalism, which was also a big surprise, was Necropolis, which Bandai Namco showed us. And what's the name of the company that made this? Do you remember?
This is Harebrained Schemes.
Yes, and it's run by Jordan.
Yep, Jordan Weissman and Mitch Gittleman.
And we saw Jordan there, right?
We saw Mitch.
Oh, we saw Mitch.
Yes,
okay,
you were
cool.
so close to nailing this.
I know. Sorry, I forget all the names, man.
So yeah, just as a quick background, Harebrained Schemes, Jordan Weissman and Mitch Gittleman used to work together at Fossa Studios. That was Jordan Weissman's company, and they made two of my favorite games ever, which is the original Shadowrun that appeared on the SNES and the Genesis. They made all the other Shadowrun games as well, except for that terrible shooter on the 360. And then, more importantly, probably for everybody, they made Crimson Skies.
I think they did do the Shadowrun 360 game.
Did they?
Yeah, the one that was multiplayer only, the one that would be huge now.
Right, maybe. Yeah, not so good at the time.
The one that everybody's kind of borrowing pieces of the concept of now.
Yeah,
yes,
kind of ahead of their time. They really are a company ahead of their time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're best known for all the Mech Warrior games, Mech Commander. So this is a company
Mech
that
Assault as well on the original Xbox, and Crimson Skies on the original Xbox. Good stuff. Very
really
cool
good
games.
stuff.
Yeah.
These guys know how to make games, and more importantly, these guys aren't caged in. They
Yeah.
don't just say we make platformers or we make action games or sports games. They've made all kinds of games. So back to Necropolis, this is
It looked like shit, man. When I saw it, when they put it up on screen, I'm like, what the fuck are we looking at? And Bandai Namco has called us all to this thing to take a look at this game, which looks like a PlayStation 2 game.
It was supposed to be Tekken 7. We're all like, we're going to see Tekken 7.
Right.
And we walk in and it's like, nah, it's just sort of like, it kind of looks like, what was that, like medieval or something?
Yeah.
Station, like these kind of shitty looking characters. But I mean, and I really like this game.
Me too.
Because in part I liked it because I fucking am awesome at it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
You were
at
the
this.
best in the whole group.
I was.
I know. You're a
got
Dark
hit up,
Souls
and
you're a Dark Souls fanatic, and it
got
borrows a lot from that.
it's got a little bit of Dark Souls. You're in these kind of tombs and you've got to fight enemies. And like Dark Souls, you got to be very careful because everyone's stronger than you, and you kind of very slowly get stronger. But more so than Dark Souls, to me, it reminds me of Rogue Legacy because it's a roguelike game where as you play, you kind of accomplish certain achievements, and you get some currency that you can spend to make your character better for the next time you go into the dungeon because you're going to die again.
It is incredibly minimalist as well, and it feels like a lot of art has been stripped out of it, but there's a beauty to it as well, which you kind of peel back. And one of the things that I think they've got in terms of freedom with, I think, less texture detail to kind of focus on is the variety in the enemies. And you're basically sinking deeper and deeper into this dungeon and leveling up and finding cool things and buying cool things. But you see a lot of variety, and I thought that was... I mean, even in our limited play session, we saw a lot of stuff, and it was really cool.
Yeah, it is, and it's all procedurally generated. So every time you hop in, again, like Rogue Legacy, you're going to get a different level than did the other time. It's got a really good sense of humor, and these guys have a great sense of humor.
Yes.
Mitch is a loose cannon, and this game is very funny. It's very tongue in cheek. I think it's surprisingly cool. I mean, it needs some work in terms of its polish. There was some rough edges for sure.
Yeah.
But that's expected at E3 and pre-E3. So it's definitely one for people who like roguelikes, people who are into Dark Souls, that kind of experience. It's one to keep an eye on for sure.
And I think it's going to be one of these dark horse success stories of 2016. And it's coming to the consoles, and it's going to be on Steam as well. I won't get tons and tons of exposure, I think. I don't think it's going to, bubble up on all kinds of mainstream media outlets. But Necropolis, if you're a gamer, if you're into that kind of stuff, you're going to dig that game, I think, quite a bit. I can't wait to get the final on that. Let's talk about the antithesis to a minimalist type of role-playing experience like Necropolis, and talk about Final Fantasy 15. What did you think of your playtime with Final Fantasy 15, my friend?
What game was this now?
Yeah, this was the game that had everything in the game.
The everything.
Everything you can think of for a video game, they put that into Final Fantasy 15.
Actually, there is a game called Everything.
There is, I know. Now it's confusing. Yeah.
This was. I did not play the demo that came out. Everyone played. So this was for me the very first experience I had with Final Fantasy 15, and I think like a lot of people, you're either in it as in Final Fantasy or you're not.
Yeah.
And I've come and gone, right? 7 I loved. I played the online game a little bit. And 9 I think I played a bunch. I played some of the early, the older ones, but I haven't sort of been into it for several years now.
12 was great.
Yeah.
And
so
it's coming
12,
back.
Right. So I didn't really play 12. So I always sort of feel like there's a block between Final Fantasy and myself in terms of just like so much visual flair and so little to kind of get your hands wrapped around. And this game, maybe more than any other Final Fantasy to me, is so enticing because there's so many crazy images to get your hands around, like
Yeah.
a car and a car driving down a highway with like a monster on the side of the road.
Right.
Like, what's that? That's not just a regular Final Fantasy kind of otherworldly, hey nani nani, stab at things. This is a totally different kind of beast. And it
It's a
turns out
very aggressive game, right? Like they're really
very,
going on after the Western RPG developers, I think, in a massive way with this sucker.
yeah, and it's a bit of a, it's kind of a road trip game, and it's kind of a 50s Grease gang
Yeah.
game. It's got a lot
And there
of
are giant robots, and there's real-time combat, and you can, zip up to some high sort of vantage point positions with abilities that you've got, and then do some incredibly cool aerial attacks. There is some loading in between the stages. It's not quite open world, but it is very expansive, I found, and every character is kind of fully voiced, and there's a lot of unbelievable texture detail, art that just doesn't think you'd never think would mesh together, but somehow looks kind of cool and compelling. I mean, just the fact that you've got chocobos and these sort of classic fintail floating cars and regular vehicles. It's just a weird melange of art styles and game styles, and I was smiling the whole time I was playing it, and I was even playing it on a compromised PC that was kind of lagging a bit on me, but I was still having a good time. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun when it comes out. I think it's going to be crazy, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think the only red flag that I had in my experience was controls,
Yeah.
and especially when you're talking about an open world game where you have to cover a lot of ground. At least in the demo that we were playing, you did a lot of just running.
Yes.
Nowhere slowly.
Well, and you get into you can avoid the fights to a degree, but the monsters and stuff will come after you as well, and they're still kind of popping in a little bit too.
Yeah.
Which kind of throws back to some classic Final Fantasy turn-based type combat, where some of it was unavoidable. But they'll hunt you down, and you'll see them kind of pop into frame and stuff. And
but also, like, the car driving didn't feel like you were really, really driving a car. It controlled kind of like it was like barely moving, and it felt like you could just kind of hold a button and it would auto drive, but it just didn't. It sort of is lacking, and maybe this is something they're working on, but it sort of lacks that, just the smoothness you get out of Western open world games that the companies have been working years and years perfecting how to move through an open world game. I mean, when you're on the back of a horse in Red Dead Redemption, running around or whatever, it never feels like you're having a hard time doing it. And in this game, it felt like there was a little bit of a conflict between the controls you need to really get through an open world game and what Final Fantasy has traditionally done, which is kind of caged in itself in these smaller segments. So I need to see how that plays out, and you're not going to know that until you get the final disc. But and you're right, compelling is the word. Compelling is the word.
And they're working their asses off. You can tell that this is kind of a make or break. It must have cost this company so much money to get this together, and obviously all of the extra deals around it, the movie pieces and the animation pieces and the car deal, everything else that they've got that's coming out along with this thing. It's a tremendous undertaking, but I think it is still one of the most exciting games that's coming up, and my fingers are crossed that it doesn't disappoint. I had a good time with the demo. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the Independent Evening, which I think was one of the highlights of our pre-E3. A lot of these games won't get a lot of press or buzz, I think, at E3, but there's two in particular I want to talk about. One of them is Headlander, which is coming from Double Fine, and we actually Blake and I visited the studio and talked to the director. I forget his name.
Is that Lee Perry's game?
Yes, and very good. That's good stuff. And we talked about the concept, and it's a crazy experience. What did you think playing it?
Yeah, I really like this game. I mean, you can't not like it just based on its style. It is Logan's Run 70s science fiction. And that's like for people of a certain age, that's my wheelhouse. Like you don't have to sell me very hard on something like that. I'm like, look at all these beiges and oranges and these ridiculous futurism for the past, spacesuits on everybody. It just looks so ridiculous. And it turns out it's even more ridiculous with its gameplay, because basically you play a head.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You're a head, and you attach onto bodies, and different bodies can perform different abilities, and if you need to get through a certain door, you might need to like detach from one body and like find another body and suck yourself onto that and then shoot some stuff, and then so you're kind of like literally the name of the game, Headlander. You
Yeah.
are landing your head on bodies in order to progress through this like kind of puzzle platformer action game.
Yeah, they don't want to use Metroidvania, but it's definitely got that
Yeah,
kind of
very
vibe.
Metroid.
You're
Yeah.
going to be looping back and gaining new abilities and stuff. But the other 70s movie reference that you didn't use in your list there was Flesh Gordon, because all of the spaceships look like big penises with ball rocket thrusters. You know, it's there a couple of those. Yeah, it's a totally crazy game. I love the logo and the kind of art style. Like you could almost see it on a cartridge, this thing, and it looks like an old iMagic cartridge for the Atari 2600. You know, the way they've got it all sort of two-toned on the color and all that stuff. It looks so cool.
Yeah. All I question about about this game, and just to play off your cock and balls mention, is its staying power, because it feels like I played it for about 45 minutes and I was getting a little kind of bored of the basic lack of like variety in the gameplay. So seeing how far they go with like the different abilities you have when you jump onto different things, and again, it's in a Metroid kind of game. If you were to only play the first hour of Metroid kind of over and over again before you got like bombs to open things up and missiles to open up doors, like that's how these games develop. So it's a little hard to talk too much about it critically when you've only seen a little bit, especially in early game. But that's my only sort of
well, and that's the biggest challenge with any one of these Metroidvania type of homages or in that genre, is the amount of them at this point. Like there have been so many great ones. Ori and the Blind Forest is the last amazing one that I can think of. And now they're being kind of shadowed a little bit by the roguelikes out there that take from that formula but then sort of procedurally generate variety for you every single time you jump into these games. And that is the challenge with Headlander. It's got to maintain a kind of a comedy consistency, but it's also got to give us a gameplay hook that's going to make us want to kind of dive further and further into the experience when we already have stacks and stacks of other fantastic, side-scrolling experiences like that.
Yeah, it's got its work cut out for it, but I agree. This was at that indie night one of my favorite games, mostly because of the dicks. Just dick ships.
Yep. We don't see enough dick ships in the industry.
Dick ships.
All right, let's talk about another indie game that was at the indie night, and I know this one blew you away. This was Pyre. This is from Supergiant.
Yeah.
Yes, and they did an amazing job with Bastion, and they did an incredible job with, what was the sword one, the singing sword one?
Transistor.
Transistor. I love that game as well. So what did you think of Pyre?
These guys are developing a real style, and you can tell the moment you look at Pyre, you can tell this is a Supergiant game.
Yeah.
I spoke to Greg Kasavin, who is the kind of lead producer guy over at Supergiant, who used to be an editor at GameSpot for many years, and he's kind of used to be a colleague of all of ours.
Good dude.
Really good dude, really smart dude. And I was talking to him about it, and that was like the first thing I said to him is, you guys now have a style. This is a real definitive, both graphically and sort of tonally. You can tell what a Supergiant game is, even just between Bastion and Transistor. And they're taking that to the next step with Pyre, which carries a lot of the same sort of look and feel. It's very bright, very colorful. It's just sort of fun and cool to look at and try to figure out what is this sort of weird new world we're in. But it hides a big secret.
We can talk about
it. We can talk about it because
it's
like you're going to see it anyway. But it's basically a sports game.
Yeah.
Even though it looks like
an RPG. It looks like a turn-based RPG.
Heroes of Might and Magic. Or something. Yeah. It looks like something like that because you have these guys on either side of the screen. But it's actually played out sort of in real time, where you have this ball and you kind of throw it to your guys, and there's kind of rules for when you can throw the ball, when you can't. You got to try to throw it into your enemy's portal thing, I guess. And it takes a while to figure it out. They have a pretty long demo. It's like a 25-minute demo, and everyone sort of is watching. You've got headphones on. You're playing the demo. They only had one station.
Yeah.
So everyone's watching it, and you're like, I do not understand what this like. I was reading the text, and then now they're doing this, and I can't put the two together. And it isn't until you sit in front of it that you go, and like the third time you go through like the, I guess, rugby, basketball, whatever it is, you're like, oh my God, it's a sports. It's esports. It's esports, sort of. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was such a cool, weird pivot away from something you're expecting and into something totally unexpected.
I can't remember. Is it a multiplayer game? Is it going to be? Are you going to be able to play with other people? And
I think so.
yeah, crazy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's say yes. It's not on the internet, and this is going to be saved forever. Yes, definitely multiplayer.
Well, I mean, it's not hard to get excited by anything that those guys do. They're a very, very clever group of individuals with a passion and a knowledge, that's inherent and obvious when you play the games. And I can't wait. I think this is going to be one of those big indie success stories of 2016. Is it definitely coming out this year? I hope it is.
Let's go with a yes for that.
All right, yes, we got 2 yeses.
Yeah,
that's
for
awesome.
sure.
Are there dick ships?
October 5th.
October 5th. Dick ships?
Yeah.
Dick
yes.
ships as well. Okay, great.
Ships, yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, now let's talk about this was arguably the best game for me that I got a chance to play during our pre-E3 kind of look at things. This was Eidos Montreal's Deus Ex Mankind Divided. And I tweeted, and I don't know if I was supposed to, that this was at the top of my most excited for list for 2016 after I had played Uncharted 4. I still can't believe I'm going into E3 just finishing Uncharted 4. That just seems unfair. And Doom as well, which is incredible. And Overwatch. But it just seems so unfair to all of these games.
You finished? You finally beat Overwatch? Did you beat
I beat
Overwatch
it, yeah.
last night? You finally beat it?
Level 100. No, but let's talk about Deus Ex Mankind Divided. What'd you think?
Oh, Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I'm a little divided over this game. I think, all right, so preface is that I'm an old nerd, and I really loved the first Deus Ex.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite games ever. And what I loved about the first Deus Ex is it's just sort of how open it really felt. It felt like you just weren't, your hand wasn't held at all, and it was like, you've got to get into this building, and who the hell knows how it's going to work, and you had all these different kind of skills to use to get into it. And it feels like the game has, since then, evolved a little bit more into a shooty game, where, as it turns out, you can crawl through a vent from time to time and do some other stuff. And that's what this still, to me, feels as. It's very much a shooter with plus, with, like, other things you can do to get around. I didn't see a lot of the, like,
did you feel that with Human
stuff.
Revolution? Did you feel like you had to get into combat? I mean, I don't think it was as free form. I think it certainly tried to sort of hit a middle line and introduce a lot of these concepts with a little bit more hand holding than the previous Deus Ex games had.
Yeah.
But I think they did a phenomenal job of finding that balance where you could just go through and be, have that compassion for the other humans in this thing and not kill everybody. And I feel that with this too.
They have that in here as well, the sort of compassion thing where you can, like, choke guys out, not kill them and whatever.
Yeah.
But I just meant sort of the ability to be, like, just kind of to hack your way through a game as opposed to, like, shoot and eventually have to take a lot of guys out.
Right.
This is still,
there's still a violence implied.
This is definitely a shooter that allows you to sort of not have to kill everybody.
Right.
So in a sense, it's not sort of my favorite direction for Deus Ex. All of that being said, I think that the demo we played was super polished, super cool.
There is a
really
weird
cool
break in between some of the animations, though, right? Like you go up to a character and then it'll go to black, and then an animation will happen, and whether you've decided to kill the character or choke them out, it's like a stutter almost before we get into the game.
Yeah. I things like that I try to not get too caught up on because the game's not out, so I don't know how much of that is like it's E3 week, pre-E3 week, and they're just kind of like chunking together the code and they're going to like fix that gap, or if that's part of the design. It's a little hard to tell, but you're right, it's noticeable that's in there.
That was my only kind of quirk with it. I mean, I think that it's taken a fidelity jump because it's on the new machines.
Yeah, it looks great.
I loved hearing Elias Toufexis' voice again. I mean, the guy's a fantastic lead actor in this thing.
He sounds so tough. I mean, we've met him. He's tough.
He's pretty tough.
But he sounds tougher.
Yes.
Than he's like one of the toughest sounding men.
And he's just such a nice guy and a good dad too, which is so, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't correlate with his.
Could you imagine having him yell at you?
I know.
If his kid fucks something up and he's like, "Listen, why'd you like?"
I'm gonna rip you in half.
Don't you spill your milk? Like,
don't you spill your milk?
You clean up your fucking Lego. Okay, Dad. So scary.
Okay, Daddy. Yeah, no. I think that the storyline, they've obviously been obsessing with stretching out this universe so much so that they showed an actual prosthetic that you can actually buy, or they're working towards, where you're going to have the ability to control the fingers and stuff like that with your mind, like ripped from the design work of the video game, and all of this stuff is happening. Clothing is coming, comic books are coming. They showed off a whole brand new mode, which was definitely more in the shooty arcade type of deal. It was almost like the old Metal Gear Solid VR missions kind of thing.
Reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah. But I love getting entrenched, and I like the Gold Tooth Creative did all of these full motion video pieces. Some of them got a little cheesy, but in terms of the material that we saw, but just the concepts and the ideas of this actual divide between humans and augmented humans, and what that's going to mean. And it feels like we are edging ever closer to that every day. It feels very pertinent. It feels very much topical. But I like the sort of political sort of tones and the sort of divide line stuff that we have to kind of crisscross and work against, and sort of make moral choices through within this experience. I just feel like it's a mature, articulate, well-crafted, beautiful video game escape. When we can also have so many kind of Twitch-like experiences that are satisfying. This is kind of like a more cerebral antidote to all of that stuff. But it also has some Twitch to it as well.
It'll be interesting also to see how they, at the end of the day, when you start playing the game, how all of its little fiddly mechanics and systems kind of come together so that you don't get sort of lost in that. I found in the demo I was a little bit like just remembering how to crouch, just like basic crouching, because there's so many. You have all these different augmentations and controls, and then you've got like different kinds of menus to do different kinds of things.
Yes.
So there's a lot happening in this video game, and I always struggle in demos that we see at shows like E3 where you haven't spent time with it. It was one of the things that, like for The Witcher 3, which was my favorite game last year.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at E3.
Yeah.
6 months before the game came out, I played it for a little bit, and they had this big long demo, and I'm like, I don't like this game because
it's such a challenge trying to decide, and so much of it is built on what they've done before, and kind of where you think they're going to land when they finally hit the bullseye with their game.
And the experience that you have with the game is from the beginning of playing a game up until whenever you are in the game, and we never get the first 20 minutes of a video game demo because there's nothing to do. It's a cutscene.
Yeah.
So we get, okay, you're about 3/4 of the way through the game here, and it's like, Jesus, I haven't played the other 3/4. I don't know the controls. I don't know, so you're struggling to kind of condense the entire back system of a video game, especially in an RPG or in a game like this, which is a shooter RPG, this and that. You're trying to condense all that and fit that into your head as you're evaluating the experience. I struggle sometimes in those moments to really know how I feel about a game because there's so much to take in and none of it's second nature. And when a game becomes second nature, like Witcher 3, then you forget about the controls and the mechanics and you're just enjoying the experience.
Right.
And I think for Deus Ex, that moment is going to be really important. If it gets in its own way, which is to say it has too many of these systems and you can't get out of fiddling with all this stuff, then it could get in the way of enjoying the experience for me. So that to me is the big question of Deus Ex. But I agree with what you're talking about in terms of the polish, the love, the depth of the story, the depth of the characters, the depth of the graphics. Everything about it feels like a
I mean, it feels like they're just going. I mean,
they're
getting a lot of support, a lot of fiscal support, I think, from the parent company. They're recognizing its transmedia potential. And I don't think they're going to squander this. I think that it's going to be an incredibly rich world to get lost in. And one of my favorite things about Deus Ex Human Revolution, as I felt about Dishonored, it was the replayability and the opportunity to go back and encounter enemies again, but play things from a completely different standpoint is very enticing. And I think it's going to be even escalated with this new game. Now the other big game that they showed us in the Deus Ex franchise is actually a very small game, but it's in line with this new Go franchise that Square Enix and Eidos Montreal are building. It's called Deus Ex Go, and it was you were the first one to beat that game too when we were all playing it together. You, Steve, and I were playing it at the same time.
Yeah, but I barely beat it first. We were all in a race on that level.
We were stumped, man.
We got stuck. It's hard, man. And you know, Lara Croft Go, which
Awesome.
was right, and I think for a lot of people better than Hitman Go.
Yep.
Part of the reason it was better is because it was playable. Like you could actually succeed better, whereas Hitman Go was gated in a lot of weird ways. It was very hard, and it
Mhm.
also kind of gated you by saying you got to get 100% on these levels to open up more levels. It
Right.
was kind of shitty design in that sense.
Yeah.
Lara Croft Go didn't have that, and it was a pretty smooth learning experience. You would get stuck, but you wouldn't be stuck for long.
No.
I don't know if Deus Ex Go is going to be as easy as Lara Croft. I feel like it's going to exist somewhere in the middle because this is harder. I mean,
Well, you have more abilities and more tools. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like Lara Croft was, I think, really in that puzzle sort of board game context, really benefited from the character's simplicity and the very, visible sort of pickups that she could, use to take down some of the objectives and some of the obstacles in her way. But Deus Ex, you forget that you've got these abilities, and you're coming up to sort of blank cubes or cubes with turrets that you just can't recall. Wait, can I hack that thing or not? And so you do run into this I don't know, sort of Gallipoli-esque moments where you keep running in and just getting slaughtered, and it's like, oh shit, I'm dead again. Oh my god, no, I'm dead again.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Yes,
like,
Edge of Tomorrow. It's very Edge of Tomorrow.
Let me try again. Yeah, it's really hard, and that's one of the things I liked about it so much is I was like, oh yeah, like we didn't move. The three of us sat there.
Yeah.
And look, there were a lot of games. Square Enix showed off a lot of games. We're not
they
talking
did.
about the number of games they showed because there
Yeah.
were too many games for us to play.
Yeah.
And like we all sat there for 25 minutes or something, like leaning over a table. It was uncomfortable with this like iPad at this low table. We're just like leaning over, going, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." Like we were really all in it because that's such a smartly designed franchise. I'm excited. I'm gonna check it out. I think if you liked either of those other games, you're gonna check this one out. And I think Deus Ex matches well in terms of its kind of aesthetic with this kind of game. You know?
Yeah. No, I think the reason why it continues to succeed is that they've really tapped into this this paranoia that we all have about being too consumed with technology, and I think it's a remarkable franchise. It really feels you're terrified and you're compelled to continue forward in the stories that they craft for us and the game sort of designs that they craft for us, and it's also incredibly malleable. And I think this Go concept is it's going to feel like you're hacking the game, which is going to be a lot of fun. And I also think that this is probably going to be the most successful one to transition to a television screen and be like a console sit-back experience as well, because of its elaborate art style and all the high-techy plus twitchy shootery type sort of designs and concepts that are a part of the
I don't know.
franchise.
I don't think anyone's going to play this thing on their TV. This is all about playing on your phone.
Oh, for sure.
Tablet,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool looking for sure. I mean, I like both of these Deus Ex games. I'm not sure I'm crazy. Like earlier when you said transmedia, that always makes me think of Angry Birds, and I don't like that. So I don't know if they should keep going bigger and bigger. But these
Especially
two games,
after you see Warcraft, the movie.
Cool. Yeah. I don't have much money, dude. I'm not seeing it. Not gonna spend it.
Well, those are the games that we can talk about currently in our live setting, in our live situation right now. We will have some more previews and more stuff that we're going to be talking about on a day-to-day basis next week. But Ben, before I let you go from the live thing, what is the hope for you from E3? What are you most hopeful for about being excited about at the show next week?
I really want to see Microsoft figure this out. I've been struggling to really enjoy the Xbox One as a console. I've been playing Mirror's Edge on it, and I just am like still not sold on this platform. I feel like Sony still has such a better grip on games I want to play, the way it's delivered, the experiences I want to see. Microsoft's got so many things going on. They've got the HoloLens thing. What's going to happen there? Is that just dead in the water? I mean,
Now it
that's
looks like they're going to have an Oculus thing as well, right? I mean,
right. So
yeah.
there's been talk about that. Like, there's just so many weird up in the airs with this company that one of the things I want to get out of E3 is some answers and kind of feel like I know what direction Microsoft is heading. I feel like as an owner of an Xbox One or someone who's going to buy an Xbox One, I know what I'm getting into. Because right now it feels like they're still in this kind of nebulous place. Whereas we know that Nintendo is like, fuck the Wii U, we're going to do the NX, and here's Zelda,
Yeah.
which is the game I want to play most at the show that I'm aware of right now is Zelda.
Yeah.
And Sony, I just feel like is so confident and is so out front that they just gotta like just keep doing what they're doing.
They're so confident they don't even have to show their new 4K machine.
They're just killing it. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, they're selling so many of these things that what I want to see again, not the game that I want to see most, but what I want to walk away from the show as a fan of gaming and as someone who wants to see companies do well is Microsoft making a really compelling case for their platform, and that's not just Gears of War. There's got to be more to it than that. So who knows? They have the most to win and the most to lose at the show.
Okay. No, I agree with you on that sentiment. It's going to be fun, man, and we will be working together at least to do a wrap up next week. But we're going to have a lot more stuff on our channels. But for right now, is there any big questions or anything at all, Blake? Or
None that I saw.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2. Everybody wants that. Yes, I'm very excited about that. But Rockstar kind of bangs their own drum. I'm going to bring all 21 of my badges.
This is a good one. There's a good one. Yeah, look at this has ribbons.
Woo! I think you won something. I think you won.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're first place.
This says Dwango.
Hey, and you're VIP, brother. Dwango.
Dwango.
Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Stitcher! We'll be back next week with a new Big
Esports.
Spaceman. Esports.
Esports.